Now, we need to begin discussing the methods of consolidation used by the infamous Pinochet.
Pinochet's plan introduced a set of economic reforms which would privatize the economy, among other reforms. They made banks independent, they cut tariffs, and reduced taxes. Pinochet's aim was actually to make Chile not a nation of proletarians, but a nation of entrepreneurs.
He erased the Allende's government's socialist policies. This allowed for inflation rates to lower and the economy to grow. Under Pinochet, there was actually a 2.9% growth in GDP. He created a boom in the economy in the 1970s.
Pinochet inserted Chile into global markets. He lowered and he even eliminated tariffs. This allowed for the growth rate of exports to increase by over 10%.
In regards to Stalin's economic aims, he abandoned Lenin's new economic policy and forced collectivization. Stalin was under the impression that modernization was necessary, and it was communists who wanted a modern, socialist economy. Pinochet, on the other hand, wanted to increase trade and implement capitalism.
Pinochet was a supporter of economic liberalization, privatization of state-owned companies, and stabilization of inflation.
In regards to Pinochet's policies against women, he was not as forward-thinking as Mao and Stalin. Pinochet did not make any advances towards women's rights and would discourage them from joining the labor force. In 1986, Pinochet passed the marriage law and gave rights to the men over women, giving the men direct rights to their property. This is unlike Mao and Stalin.
Mao allowed authority of women in his country, but only in regards to women's issues. Women could only be in power if it was about themselves. Under Mao, divorce was legalized, and actually the year that divorce was legalized, 1.3 million divorces happened in 365 days. Under Stalin, divorce and abortion was illegal, but medals were given to mothers after they had certain amounts of children.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much!
Pinochet's regime was, in fact, not friendly towards women, despite the other modern advances he made in the country. He had no interest in making reform to help women. Throughout his regime, he discouraged women's participation in the labor force.
Yes, they were urged to return to home life and put emphasis on their maternal duties. Those who stayed in the workplace were discriminated against, and the men they worked with were favored over women.
Throughout his regime, Pinochet upheld the marriage law until 1986, which gave husbands the rights of their wives' property on the precept that he owes her protection in exchange for obedience.
From the 1970s onward, women were given a voice in politics through their importance in their private sphere of Chilean society, as opposed to having a voice through the work they do outside of the home. Because the government viewed women as an important part of homemaking, they were given a voice as speakers for their family members.
The Indian population, who made up about 5% of the population in Chile, was the poorest, least integrated population in the country, as they had been otherwise ignored by the government for centuries.
This is similar to Mao's segregation of the minority people when he limited what territories they could have to only 5. The economic growth under Pinochet was 2.9%, but under Pinochet, the growth rate of his export was 10.6%.
Minorities in the USSR were clergy and any and every religious entity in Russia. Stalin was against organized religion and wanted to be the one worshipped, not God.
Stalin forced and implemented Russification onto the people, making everyone bend to the Russian will by speaking Russian and only using Russian resources.
Pinochet managed his control in several ways, such as exterminating leftism and executing thousands. He implemented a constitution that fit him well and was limited by 8-year terms.
He also kept his control through his military force, and he mooched off of the vulnerability and the fear of his people by executing and threatening their lives.
Stalin and Mao kept their power in the same sense, through the fear of others.
Overall, Pinochet was a dictator who overthrew his government, stabilized his inflation, and he did many things in Chile that both harmed and bettered society.
What is this?
Recording Omar Stalin.
Oh, my Stalin.
You gonna sing with me? I'm gonna give Becca lots of material. Me, me, me. Me, 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 me. So, fa, la. How does it go? Do, re, mi, fa. Ready?
Yeah.
Hey guys, you guys are my backups.
Wait, this is actually going
You
in
guys
your
are my
video?
backups. Y'all are my backups. Thank you. Oh my style.
Where are we?
All is loyal. Wait. Okay, ready? 1, 2. Oh my Stalin. Oh my Stalin. Oh my Stalin. Dictator. The party taking over. All is loyal. Dictator. And Russia with the Soviets. Enforcing Russification. If they oppose you, you just kill them. Always loyal dictator. Why they'll love you, 'cause they're forced to. You even purge the Red Guard. Shots were fired in the forest. All to know, but none to hear. All is loyal dictator.
Mi general Augusto Pinochet le saluda a su pueblo tan querido. Fue un estadista, un gran libertador, fue presidente de nuestra gran nación. Mi general